We're here with the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tuman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday noon until 2 here on WRMN 1410 AM out of Elgin. Our studio call-in number here is 847. My sheet. 931-1410. The text number here is 505-926-1410. Or you can hit us up on the WRMN 1410 AM's YouTube channel and hit us up in the comments. We'll be live in the live show. All right. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Just kind of okay. It's all right. I mean, it was warm yesterday. I got out to my garage, did some, garage cleanup in it, it's nice. It relaxes me. It's my fortress of solitude.
For sure.
My fish are still gone. The one hive of bees is moving. The other hive, I think, didn't make it. But they say most beekeepers, even the professional ones, lose about 50% of their hive every winter. Unless you're living in warmer climates. Yeah, it's the price of the hobby,
Yeah.
Price of the hobby. Price of keeping our natural resources real nice. So, aside from everything else out there, we're going to talk about promotions in the military. And specifically battlefield promotions, right, Paul? We
are.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most famous battlefield promotion that everyone in the United States, I'm not talking about other countries, not Great Britain, all right, not Italy, not Argentina. We're talking about just the United States and those battlefield promotions. What do you think is the most famous one out there?
Well, I could think of two. Audie Murphy and General Custer.
General Custer. All right, so that's going all the way back to the Civil War. And so what they called those? They called those the
brevet.
Not so much a brevet. That is one word for it. But he was a colonel in the militia, and then he became a general in the militia. So he wasn't regular Army at the time. He was he had a regular Army rank. I forget I think his regular Army rank.
He was a captain.
It was captain, yeah. So he kept getting promoted in the militia, which is the National Guard. What we call the National Guard now. They did not have an Army Reserve at the time, but they called it militia, and the promotions were in the militia. So it was a promotion in the militia. So once the war was over, those guys all got reduced back to their active duty, their regular Army grades. Some of them, they got promoted in the militia, and then later on, while they were still in service, they got promotion in the regular Army grade. All right, so they kept their militia, they kept their regular Army, or they may have only dropped one grade. But I think Custer went all the way down to lieutenant colonel at the end of the war. So he was a captain. He got promoted up to general, but his regular grade, during the war, got promoted up to lieutenant colonel. So when the war was over, he actually went down to lieutenant colonel, and then he went back up again. So he did get promoted more. And there were guys in there that they were militia officers, which means that the states were required to send so much soldiers, right, in the draft. They supply so many regiments and everything. So you didn't need any military training to be an officer, because the governor would give you a commission, and then he would send you off into militia to the regular Army to fight with the Army of the Northern Potomac or the Army of the Cumberland or whatever army. So your regiment would go down there and then be and be blinded. Anyways, so you would go down there, right? You would go to your service, right, as a colonel, because the governor said, "Oh, you're a smart guy, or you're a hardworking guy, or you gave a lot to my campaign, and you want to go off to war where I'm going to make you a colonel, and you get there, and then you fought the whole 4 years in the war, maybe got promoted even up to general. At the end of the war, you decided that you want to stay regular Army, right? And you never got anything but a promotion in the militia, a brevet. They reduced some of these guys down to private because they wanted to stay in the Army. And even though they're a private, they went up the ranks kind of quick, you know? So so Audie Murphy, so the Civil War guys there, and then Audie Murphy is he joined, he didn't even have a high school diploma. He didn't even have a GED. And what I understand is when he joined, you know, they had to petition to let him in. And one of the reasons was that he was the only breadwinner for the family, right? His mother, you know, he's the guy that was going to feed the family. And the money that he would make over there would actually feed his family back home, you know, even as a private. And he went up the ranks. And it's so funny. Yeah, it's so, he went up the ranks and went to got promoted to staff sergeant, which is E6 pay grade. That was below E7. Back in World War II, you know, the pay grades go enlisted. They call them enlisted, right? So E1 to E9 now, all right? With E9 being a sergeant major, command sergeant major to the Army. All the same pay, those three guys at E9, except, you know, the time that you have in makes a difference. And the command sergeant major at the Army gets special, like, allowances for everything. So back in World War II, the highest pay grade for enlisted was E7. A sergeant first class, a first sergeant, a sergeant major, all made the same pay. So Audie Murphy was right below that level when they promoted him to lieutenant, battlefield promotion. Then, you know, he's wounded multiple times, and he ended up getting off active duty, but could not attend West Point because of his war injuries. But he maintained a commission, I believe, in the Texas National Guard. So he stayed in Texas in the militia and maintained his commission there because he could take a commission from the governor. It seems kind of boring, right? Because they have been in the service 38 years, active, reserve, National Guard, and everything, and having read up on regulations and all this stuff. But the thing people don't understand here is that each state, because we're a republic, right, Paul? And we've discussed the use of the Guard versus active forces and everything ad nauseum here. The governor has whatever authority the state gives him for the militia, for the National Guard. So some states, the governor has ultimate authority over it. So if I want, and each state has what you call an adjutant general. That is the commander of the National Guard, Air National Guard in that state. The adjutant general. And that is a two-star position, a major general position. So the governor, not of Illinois, I know you have to be at least a major in a battalion command position or a lieutenant colonel to be considered for being promoted to the adjutant general, which is a big jump because if you're a major in that battalion command, you're going to jump over lieutenant colonel, you're going to jump over colonel, you're going to jump over brigadier general, and you're suddenly going to be a two-star major general. That's like the power of the governor of the state of Illinois. He can do that. All right. So they did it a couple years back. They made a lieutenant colonel. Now, that commission that the governor gives to that newly newly frocked major general is only good in the state of Illinois. He's an officer in the militia. He's a major general of the militia now. So he goes to a thing called a Federal Recognition Board, which means in case you get federalized, all right, you have recognition at that rank. Okay. So the Federal Recognition Board doesn't have to recognize any militia commission. They're not obligated to. So if the governor gives you that commission to major general and the Federal Recognition Board says, no, we're not recognizing you and won't recognize you federally in any grade at all as an officer, if you get called to active duty with the National Guard, you are suddenly down to private rank. If that, or whatever your highest rank was that was federally recognized. So when they promote officers in the National Guard by a selection process, one of the things they go through is the Federal Recognition Board, and it's usually a rubber stamp. The Federal Recognition Board will rubber stamp you. For these militia major generals, they rubber stamp them initially as a brigadier general. So federally recognized as 1 star. And then after a while, after they've proven that they have the sense God gave someone to pour pee out of a boot with instructions on the bottom, right? Then they make them a 2-star, federally recognize them as 2-star. All right, so that's when we go all the way back there to the Civil War, and you got these promotions to officers in the militia. That field promotions went on, and it wasn't just Audie Murphy. There were a lot of guys. There were a lot of guys that got battlefield commissioned, all right?
25,500 in World War II alone.
Yeah. And they went up to Vietnam, all right? But they stopped in 1973. They stopped doing that. Only to bring it back in 2009. So I had it up on my Magic Apple. Oh, look at there. He's giving a plug for Apple. What sort of liberal left-wing nutbag is this guy? He's got an Apple. He's got an iPad. Oh, my God. I can't believe that guy isn't using it's a Samsung or something. Like, I don't know. It just.
You mean Android?
Android, yeah, Android system. I actually have a Linux phone at home that I don't use. It's pure Linux, purism, a pure phone. I bought a pure phone. Yes, I bought a pure phone. All U.S. made components, everything made component there. It's challenging to use, but it does work. All right, so there was one in, I believe, in Iraq, a female staff sergeant got promoted to lieutenant. I think that was...
Yeah, that was Michelle Miller Cherland.
Yeah, that's it. Do you have any background on her?
I know she was enlisted, and then she got promoted, and then I think she's a teacher now. I believe she finally made major. She served like over 20 years, and then I believe she's the first woman. And then I know that there's a website out there, and she goes under the name of Michelle L. Miller. But I believe she's a teacher now. She did one of the universities that's mostly online for the military, and she got a teaching credential, and she's a teacher now.
The military recognizes many online universities, like the one formerly known as Excelsior. Now it's known as Regents. I guess Regents sounds better than Excelsior. And you know what their fight song is?
No.
The check is in the mail. If it bounces, I will fail. So basically, you write them a check and they give you a degree.
That's a good one.
Yeah. We actually had, I won't mention his name. Everyone that was in the Guard with me knows it, though. Dude didn't finish he took a commission early without a college degree. Now, you could do that, again, in the Guard, all right? You could do that in the Guard. You could do, you could do it. You could have a battlefield commission without a college degree, as we know through Audie Murphy. But he did not do his due diligence to finish his degree in the proper amount of time. So when it came time to promote him to captain, he couldn't get promoted because he didn't have his college degree. So they dumped him down to E5 rank, which I don't think he was ever E5 before. So he gets dumped down to sergeant rank, buck sergeant rank. And he's no longer an officer. But he managed to send his check in to the university and got his online degree. And the Army recognized that university so that he got his degree, and then he petitioned to get his commission back, and he got his commission back. All right, through the state and everything, because now he fulfilled those. What we have in the Title 10 of the U.S. Code, I think Chapter 35, Title 10 of the U.S. Code, is that the president has the authority to temporarily, all right, what did they call it? Assign, not recognized. He temporarily assigned them a rank. So brevet them, all right, brevet these people ranks up to the rank of Major General. And you don't even have to have been in the service. He could take you out of nowhere. Zip. Let's say, how to put this? There's a piece of equipment out there. It's a real good piece of equipment, and only you know how to use it. You're the guy that knows how to use it, right? You're the guy that knows how to control it. It's going to be expensive, but it's going to win us all sorts of wars. But you're not in the service. But it's going to kill a lot of people, so they don't want you doing it as a contractor or a civilian, because that's kind of like now you're guilty of murder because you're not in the service. You're not sworn. So what the president does is he says, zap, you're a lieutenant colonel now in the military. Whatever rank you need to run that machine, he could zap you to it for 2 years or the entire time of the war, if it's a declared war conflict. He could brevet you to that rank. And that as soon as the war conflict is over, you're done. You're back to whatever you were before. Right? So he could do that. Right? Unless you're on, let's say, he could promote you. Suddenly they need a battalion commander. And everyone that they found in the MERC, Military Intelligence Readiness Command, all right, above the rank of major, all right, they found to be just a mouth-breathing drooler, all right? Knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing drooler, all right? Because they all got assigned to the MERC. So they can't find the competent one to take over command of a battalion that's deploying. They need a competent guy. They could brevet a lieutenant, a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, or a captain, or even a major, up to that lieutenant colonel grade to be that battalion commander. And he is promoted to lieutenant colonel for the period of time that he's needed above everyone else. All right? He's not on a list or anything. They just brevet him because they need him to do their job. And, like all these other junior officers see him go all the way up. That was with, but he's the guy that's supposed to be in command, because you have 3 levels of command, three levels of leadership, right? No, all right. There's rank, right? There's one rank, right? So you have 3 captains. Who's supposed to be in charge, right? Well, you don't know. They're all the same rank, but you have a major, captain, and lieutenant. Well, you say, well, the major should be in charge because he has the rank. All right. Then you have like a date of rank. All right. So you have all 3 captains. They're all the same rank, but this guy made it a day before everyone else. One day, even one day. He gets sworn in one day before. Well, he's got date of rank. Even though the other guys may have more seniority, more time in service, they may have been enlisted before, he's got date of rank on them. So he kind of be in charge. And then there's the leadership, the guy that's in charge by position. So every unit has a position, right? Commander. That's a billet. That's a slot. You know, they have numbers assigned to these things and everything. There's only one commander slot in that unit. All right? And you're a major in the battalion command slot, and you might have a major in a company command slot that has date of rank on you, that he made major before you did, but you got assigned that battalion command slot. Even though technically your company commander outranks you, you outrank him by position. You are in a position of authority over him. It rarely happens, but it does happen, right? And so that's what we have with the leader, with leadership, with the rank system there. So when everyone has the same date of rank, everyone has the same date of rank, and they have the same time in service, then it goes down to another level. Goes down to your birth date, whoever's the oldest. Let's say for some reason all three of you were born on the same day. Alphabetical order. So,
Wow.
how often is that going to hit? I think the alphabetical order one's a lie. I think that's just a myth. Not a lie, it's a myth. The alphabetical order is a myth. But the birth date is true. All right? So it's date of rank, time in service, you know, whoever's older. Very rarely comes about. But when we get back, right, the break's going to be coming up in a little bit. I want to talk about the different types of leadership that there is, all right, and why people get promoted on the battlefield ahead of others, or for whatever reason, without bringing in someone, while someone would get a battlefield promotion. Just because you're very valiant and very brave and do something, probably it was a 50-50 chance you're going to get everyone killed or you're going to save everyone's life. You know, if you save everyone's life, you get the Medal of Honor, right? You get an award. If everyone dies, no one cares because everyone died, right? You're gone. No one's left to talk about it, right? But just because you're brave, hard charging, and everything doesn't mean that you're going to make a good leader, right? That you're going to make a good leader. Just because you're a good leader doesn't mean you're going to be necessarily overly brave. You might be very cautious. Patton was brave in a way that he knew that you had to continue fighting, that you couldn't slow down, that you had to tire out the enemy, that you had to use your logistics, that you had to use everything you wanted, and you had to take some risks. You could not be risk averse, right? Montgomery was very slow, very deliberate, very risk averse. Both of them were top commanders in their fields, polar opposites of each other, but top commanders in their field, top leadership, respected by the enemy. All right, we come back. I want to talk about the types of leadership style. All right, Paul?
Sounds good.
Fixed Bayonets, comrades, we're back for the second quarter of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with co-host Mike Tuman, Paul Burvid, every Saturday noon until 2. I was going to call you Paul Francis.
That was my dad's middle name.
With Michael Anthony and Paul Francis, or yeah, that's my dad's middle name also. My middle name, Francis. Right. I love the name Francis. It's awesome. St. Francis was awesome. He was the warrior monk. He was in the military before he saw the light. Not that being in the military makes you not see the light, but he wanted to devote everything he could to Jesus. All right.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. Every Saturday noon to 2 here, AM 1410 WRMN out of Elgin. You could hit us on the studio number 847-931-1410 or the text number 505-926-1410, or hit us up on the YouTube live channel in the comments and everything. And Paul keeps an eye on that for me. Anyways, all right, so a little shout out, as I do every week, to my brothers at the Dunkin' Donuts Veterans, 7039 on Dempster. Every Tuesday, that's a Dunkin' Donuts. I'm going to put up a subdomain page just for the Dunkin' Donuts with the information that we could put up there. Nice. You know, it'll be subdomain to Cylink. just make a little leaflet there. Every Tuesday, 9 until whatever, but usually it's guys get there at 8 o'clock. You talk with all these older veterans, some younger veterans too, like myself, the very young 62. So it's a good time. I suggest everyone get out there. A shout out to my peeps over at the Blue Box Cafe. Go right there on Chicago Avenue in Elgin here, right by the station, right around the corner. Great coffee. These kids are good kids, and they make great sandwiches. It's very pleasant in there. No one's screaming and yelling, And I have not got sick one time. That's probably.
I love their BLTs.
The BLTs, I'll have to try that next time.
So good.
All right, because I usually have the Dalek. Dalek's good. All right, so I wanted to talk about like leadership. Right? So there's 3 types of leaders in the Army. Those who can count and those that can't. Right? I hope someone got that. Anyways. All right, so you have in our Army, you have a leader, right? And the lowest level of leader listed in the Army, right, is a squad leader, a leader. He is designated a leader. You're in charge. You're the leader of those people. The next one is a platoon leader, right? And above that, you have your captain. These are positions. These are leadership positions. You're there in a position. You're a leader due to your position, all right? The next type of leadership is by rank. So there's no designate. There's a section, right? You're not a platoon. You're a section chief, right? You're in charge of that section. You could be a gun section, a battery, not a battery, but a gun section in a battery, like an artillery section. And you have a section chief, the gun chief, all right? He is there pretty much by rank. He's the highest ranking guy, all right? So he's not called the leader, but he's the chief, but he's there by rank. And sometimes if the battlefield gets mixed up and all these guys come together as one unit, an ad hoc unit, you'll have the highest ranking guy taking charge, all right? So one thing with the prisoners of war, if you're in a prisoner of war camp, you don't vote on who the leader is, who's going to be the leader of the POWs. It's by rank. It's the highest ranking guy. He's going to be the de facto. He should take over de facto leadership. And the other type of leader in the military, and they're all over the place, is the de facto leader. He might not have the rank, the longevity, or the position, but he's the guy that everyone comes to get things done, or, when they're in trouble, or to be mentored, or, to have something done. Because the people have learned to trust him or her, right? And rather than go to the people that are either in the rank position or the leadership assigned position of commander or leader or whatever, they have more faith in this person, knowing that that person will take up their cause for them, knows a little bit better, right? And that's a de facto leader. That's a guy that simply by his own personality and style or whatever attracts the loyalty of the people under there. That could be a good and bad thing depending on the way you use it. Anyone who has read The Caine Mutiny. Now you watch the movie, it's okay. The movie's okay. I mean, didn't Humphrey Bogart, isn't that one of his Academy Awards?
Captain Queeg.
Yeah,
Captain Queeg.
Didn't he win the Academy Award for Captain Queeg?
I don't know.
Anyways, there was a guy on the ship, spoilers, if you haven't read the book, you should, but there was a guy, and not that Captain Queeg was the best guy. I mean, the book, right off the bat, shows that this guy is a self-centered kind of do as I say, not as I do kind of guy, right? But he had a guy who was the quote de facto leader amongst the officers junior to Queeg, that was working in the background against him. All right, against him. So he was a de facto leader, but he was not working to support the mission or anything. It gets all quagmired there. But you could have a very hard leader, right? But you should try to work with them, not against them. It reflects a lot going around politically today when it comes to leadership. All right, you have your choice. You don't like the leader, you think he's incompetent. Well, you could work with them to make him better. You could work for the mission. You can ignore your hate of the leader, right? And you realize there's a mission there. All right.
Humphrey Bogart won the Academy Award for The African Queen. He was nominated for the Caine Mutiny, but he didn't get it.
Okay. Well, that's a shame. I think it's hard. It's hard to get an Academy Award for being the bad guy.
He was also nominated for Casablanca, and I think that's an excellent film too.
Well, when Casablanca came out, it was I don't think they even listed it as a B movie. It was a movie that had to be made because of the contract that they had with the movie, the movie show, right? So they had to make that movie. What they didn't realize that and these actors, they all acted, back then it was a crew of always the same actors, How many movies has Humphrey Bogart, Sidney Greenstreet, and Peter Lorre been in together?
At least 4 or 5, maybe more.
Yeah. And I mean, then you have, all right. So yeah.
Two best lines from that movie. I remembered the day very well. You wore blue, the Germans wore gray. Mm-hmm. And I sensed that this is going to have a beautiful relationship. When they're going off, you get the impression they're going to fight.
I have the feeling this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. That's like, especially the one I remember you wore blue, the Germans wore gray. That's a good one, man.
Yeah, that's good. I still like. Why you shut me down? What's wrong? And he goes, I'm shocked. Gambling. Shocked that gambling is going on here. You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, so in that movie, all right, there you have a de facto leader. All right? Rick was the de facto leader in that whole onslaught there, right? Everything going on, You had the German leadership, but Rick was the guy kind of said, all right, so you can work against your guy and the mission fails. And because the mission fails, people get hurt. We lose the war. We lose a battle. We lose anything. You're working against the guy because you don't like him, because maybe he is incompetent, but you're tripling his incompetency by working so hard against him, right? Now, you could work fixing his messes all the time, which I've had to do. That's 10 times the amount of work because you're fixing the messes before they cause the mission to fail. Because my personality wasn't that I can get into people's minds and make them do the right thing. There's just so many people out there that are leadership. They have leadership by position. They were put in that role, right? They don't have it by competency. They don't have it by longevity. Sometimes they have been in as long as anyone else, right? They're by position. And because we had another guy that was senior to this guy that wasn't the commander, all right? He was up to be promoted for major, but he didn't want that command position, all right? That's kind of laziness. And that, to me, showed me that the guy that turned it down wasn't a leader at all. He wasn't a leader. He had the rank, but he wasn't the leader because he probably would have done definitely. My dog could have done a better job than the guy I was with, than the guy I was under. My dog could have done a better job, honestly. And But he was there.
Believe me, I know how that goes, man.
And
Believe me, I know how that goes.
He was such a detracting from our actual mission. It was unbelievable. Then you have, like I said, you have a leader there.
To the point of sometimes you wonder if the guy's really not working for the enemy. That's how bad they are.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, but all right. So then you have like longevity, right? Guy that's been there the longest. But unfortunately, the guy that's been in the longest, doing this the longest, that ended up to be me, you know? But I couldn't get anyone to listen to me. Every time I said, one thing I learned about leadership and to be a de facto leader, all right? People start coming to you because they realize that you've been right on so many levels, that you're right. But the other thing is, if you show your people, anybody, just a little bit of respect, a little bit, no matter who they are, where they came from, what they look like, how tall, how fat, how bad their breath is, right? If they're doing their job, that's the main thing. They got to do their jobs, right? Don't waste your time on the people that won't do their jobs. Scream at them, whatever. You yell at them. Spend all your time trying to make them do their jobs. They won't. And the mission is failing. Spend your time supporting the people that do their jobs. Give them the opportunity to do their jobs in the most efficient way possible. Give them high cover. When the bosses come and they try to mess with your people, because bosses will do it for no reason whatsoever, because they just have this big thing about it, you back the bosses off. You say, hey, my people are doing their job. All right? You want to take it out on me. They call it taking the heat rounds. High explosive anti-tank, right? I'm there. I'm an armor, right? Once you high cover for most of these people, not all of them, there's always going to be that one or two people that betray you, for whatever reason, right? So once you give them the 90%ers, right? Once you give 90% the high cover, the support, the little bit of mentoring, they will be loyal to you. They will be loyal. Now, here's the trouble. You have developed your own cult of personality, which you can't control these people when they realize that the commander now is useless, right? They stop giving the commander respect. This is the tightrope you always have to walk in the military. The guy might not the guy or girl might not deserve any respect at all, but they are in that position. And ultimately, it was the president of the United States that put them there, right? So you have to give them at least the respect of that position. Now, I'm not going to be a Kelly. Yes, not every order they give is a legal order, because some of them are so dumb, right, that they will give a blatant illegal order, but that's where you just correct them. You just say, sir, you can't say that. That's not right. I had a lieutenant colonel scream at me to falsify intelligence. And I says, no, I'm not doing it. And then I had to tell him, put it in writing. If you put that in writing, I wasn't going to falsify intelligence. I'd just take the writing and bump it up the chain of command and let what fell well. But I could do that. But if the people underneath me did that, right, then they're disrespecting the commander. I can't allow that either, right? So you got to walk that tightrope as a de facto leader, right? Then you have de facto leader. Then you have what I like to call, the Army calls them SMEs, right? A SME. I'm the SME. Are you Mr. SME? I'm a SME, subject matter expert. There is no SME in the Army in enlisted ranks and warrant officer ranks. There's no SME. There's a SAMF, a smart-ass MF. That's it. There's no SME. You're the SAMF, right? And you're the guy that has all the knowledge in your head. All the knowledge. You know how to put the cryptofills in the radio. You know the rules of the law of warfare to a T. You know how to tune that Hummer engine. You know how the headspace and timing on machine gun, whatever you're working with, right? And the commander might only have a general knowledge of all this stuff, overall general knowledge. He knows enough to get slapped in the face at a bar, right? Just like I know enough Russian to get slapped in the face in a bar. He knows enough about every little subject, just enough to get him in trouble. But he's got the guys that have been there forever. And this happens in the National Guard too. You could have a guy that's a specialist. We had in the reserves, a specialist. He is a specialist. He's only an E4. He's not even an NCO. But he's the supply guy. And he's a smart supply guy. He was just a little chubby, right? And because of that, they didn't want to promote him to sergeant. All right? But he had all the knowledge in the world of logistics. He knew everything. More than any logistical officer would ever know, this little E4 knew it. He is your expert leader. That's the guy you go to saying, listen, we need this. How do we get it? All right? So that's the type of leadership you see. And the failures are when a guy is supposed to be the subject matter expert or the SAMF, right? And he isn't. He's faking it. Gets people hurt. All right? And this is like counter, like we had a guy that battlefield promoted himself. It's in Afghanistan, right? And he's supposed to be with the G2, all right, intelligence. And he's supposed to be the senior human intelligence guy there, the technical expert for human intelligence. And everyone says he's the expert because he's wearing CW5 rank, the highest rank you get as warrant officer. He's wearing it. And I'm a W2 on the list for W3. And I've been enlisted for 17 years before that. And I had an opportunity to talk to this guy on several occasions and realized he didn't know anything. He was clueless, right? Clueless. What I found out after the deployment is that dude was only a W3 and wore W5 rank the whole time. And the colonel, the 06, had given him the respect, and the commanding generals had given him the respect as if he had been a multi-year, long-term W5 warrant officer, top of his field and everything. And anyone else that said anything, they went to him. He was supposed to be the expert. That's the damage he caused to our system by pinning him. They didn't prosecute him because he never took the pay. He never took the pay. He battlefield promoted himself. Battlefield promoted himself by putting the new rank on. 2 grades up, and they don't do that with warrant officers. They do it with commissioned officers. And this is in Title 10, Chapter 35. I can take a warrant officer 1 and make him up to the rank of Major General. Boop. There you go. You're warrant officer 1, Major General. But I'm the President of the United States. I can take a sergeant first class and promote him to the rank of W1 because I'm the president and I tell the Secretary of the Army to do that because that's his authority. I could promote I believe, an E1 up to E6. So I could take a private and make him up to a staff sergeant because I'm the commander. And through the president, I'll have that authority. So yeah, there's ways to do it. This guy didn't have any of those ways. And that's when, it's not that they didn't have someone to do that job at that rank. They called him up at the rank he was to do that job at W3. But once, because they called him out of the individual ready reserve, no one knew who he was. So he was able to pin himself W5 because when he got over there, they just said, well, who would wear that rank if they weren't? Yeah, there's, so when you are supposed to be the subject matter expert and you're not, you could be as that leadership position of being the expert. If you're not the expert, you cause grave damage. But then people start learning that he's supposed to be the expert, but he's not. So they start coming to who the real expert is. And I'll tell you a story about that when we get back, because that one was hilarious. That had a lieutenant colonel pulling his hair out. And okay, we got 2 minutes. Got 2 minutes. So we got anything to say on that, Paul? I mean, in civilian world, you have to run into those types of leaders and non-leaders.
You're talking about something interesting. Did you ever see the movie Between Heaven and Hell?
No.
It's a 1956 movie, and it's Robert Wagner was a sergeant, and then he struck an officer and he got demoted. So they sent him to a company that was in for punishment in the Philippines. Okay, and it's headed by Broderick Crawford. Okay, and he's a captain, and his name goes by the name of Waco. Okay, and he's so afraid of Japanese snipers and everything because all the officers are getting picked off by these Japanese snipers. He won't let anybody salute him. He just tells them to call him Waco and all that stuff. And he's kind of mistreating. He sends Robert Wagner out on a patrol to go to this town. And he's trying to make like Robert Wagner's a slacker. And he goes, did you go to the town? I don't believe you. And he goes, yeah. And he takes like a sign from a church and he throws it. And so that he said, I went, and then they had a different respect. But sadly, Waco gets in a Jeep and gets shot. Giant sniper.
Nice. All right, when we're back, we're going to talk about some more, like some real world events and, how people get promoted, without actually going through the boards. Comrades, we're back for the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Paul Burvin and Mike Tuman every Saturday noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM out of Elgin. The Fox River Valley Media Network. Our call-in number here is 847-931-1410, and our text number is 505-926-1410. Hey, Paul, all right, so I was talking about, some stories of,
leadership.
Promotions and leadership. All right. So we got, before I went over to Afghanistan the first time when we won the war, the guys at Guard Bureau asked me, because I was going over as commander of a detachment. It was actually listed as a company, but how do you have a company with 6 guys? So I've got what they call UIC code for a company, for a forward deployed company. I'm the commanding officer of this. So I have UCMJ authority. And they asked me, what do I want? What do you want, Chief? And I says, well, I want all my guys promoted up 1 before we go. Because I knew the Guard had that authority to do that. And they did. They promoted everyone except for one guy. One guy, he didn't want the promotion. He was an E7. He didn't want the promotion. All right? And I told him, man, that's more pay. That's more pay. And if you make that rank now, you have more chance. If you make E8, first sergeant, it was master sergeant. If you make master sergeant, you have more chance to be a sergeant major in the future. You have that, you're closer to the goal, the top rank goal. And he's like, well, I don't want the responsibility. See, there's a lack of leadership there, right?
Yeah.
If you're a leader and you don't seek to, if you're going to be a leader, if you're any type of leader, you should consider getting more responsibility, right? Talk about other issues when this didn't happen. So now this guy, we deployed with him. He's got some quirks. He's not a bad guy, right? I wouldn't say he's a bad guy. And he did some stuff at his E7 that colonels and generals wouldn't have been able to do. And probably got a lot less recognition than he should have because he ticked people off. He went over to Georgia. All right, not Georgia, next to between South Carolina and Florida.
The place in the Soviet Union,
the former Soviet Union, Georgia. And I thought, oh, great, we're Russian linguists. All right, we're going to go over there and we're gonna stomp the hell out of the Chechens. We're going to help the Georgians stomp the hell because at that time, war on terror, right? The big war on terror,
right.
And you can't deny that the Chechens weren't a big terrorist group. I mean, they killed people in a school. They took over a school, killed men, women, and children. Children in a school. In a school. So you want to argue with me that the Chechens weren't terrorists? Go ahead. All right, so I thought, hey, so they bring over George because, I'm too aggravating. I'm not going to. They bring over the sergeant first class. And he's old country. He's an old country guy, man. And he's older than me. He's an older guy, right? He didn't enter into the Army National Guard till he was 32 years old. Right? He knew how to get along with all the senior guys in the Georgian military. He knew them, they treated him just like one of their own because he looked like them. Dude looked like Omar Sharif, right? Dude looked just like him, talked like him, drank like him, knew how to behave exactly like them. Tried to advise the Special Forces guys, listen, this is how you deal with them, all right? This is how you deal with them, how you make friends with them, or at least get their respect. Didn't listen to him at all. Now, the colonel, lieutenant colonel over there, is listening to the Georgian officers. Tell him this, tell him that, everything, right? Meanwhile, the sergeant first class is rubbing elbows with everyone, talking to everyone, walking around the streets of Tbilisi and everything, right? Talking to people there. Just talking to the average people. When the, who was it? The ambassador, was it Dugashvili? Shivenkashvili. All right, so the brother to the sergeant major of the army was working for the State Department in that area, all right? And got along with the sergeant first class, got along with them fine. And so they would chit-chat all the time, right? And so this lieutenant colonel would be talking to this high-ranking guy in the State Department at the embassy there, and the Shivenkashvili would come out and said, that's not what that sergeant first class says. That's not what he says. I don't want to use his name. I don't want to. That's not what he says. That's not. And the sergeant first class was right every single time. Every single time. He's absolutely 100% correct. To the point that they sent him home. Right? The lieutenant colonel had to send him home because he was getting fronted off too much. Right? He took his sharpest tool out there. He took his SME, right? His subject matter expert, his leader that he should have listened to, right? The subject matter leader that he should have listened to, but he's the command, position, and rank leader, right? So he can't listen to this guy. That shows you his leadership style. After that, they kicked the 10th Special Forces out of Georgia. Leave, you're no longer welcome. Because they didn't know how to behave. Now, having worked with them before, the Georgians are, Army, military guys are arrogant, right? They're little arrogant guys. Would you want milk toast in your army, Paul, or some guys with arrogance?
No, you want some guys with some backbone.
Yeah, these guys have some backbone, right? And so, yeah, now you match them up with the Special Forces type of arrogance, and it's just a clash. They're just clashing. But they had someone there that could have, if they listened to him, he would have mediated everything. Everything. There's a subject matter expert, right? Now.
He was the true urban translator, as we would say.
Oh, my God. So now the same guy, right? The story, same guy stays on, he disobeys me. I give him a direct order, right? I am his company commander, right? And I says, we're demobbing. We're going home. We got orders. We've been on active duty our year. We're going home now. We're all going to Fort Bragg to out process. He says, no, I'm staying here. I go, what? Okay, whatever. I'm not going to fight with you. Because I know, really, short of, it's kind of hard to get into his brain, right? But I know him. I'm like, oh, he'll learn. But two other guys, the Special Forces, convinced that they could stay. And I says, that's not going to happen. It requires a 4-star general to sign off on your extension orders. That's not going to happen. They're not going to sign off on your extension orders to sit at Fort Carson, Colorado. Right? Taking up space. They're not going to do that. They didn't believe me. So I go to Fort Bragg to out process with the people that followed me, right? And they go, hey, where are these other 3 guys? I go, well, they didn't come. Did you tell them they had to? I go, of course I did. I even sent an email to one of the guys that they have over in Bosnia right now. They go, what? They got a guy in Bosnia? I go, yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So, all right, we out process. Go home. It's kind of cool, right? They asked me if I wanted these guys court-martialed, that they were going to have them brought to Fort Bragg in handcuffs, right? In irons for disobeying the direct order of their commanding officer. But a colonel at Fort Carson told them they didn't have to. Didn't matter. Colonel had no longer had any, and he knew, he should have known, but he didn't know about the reserves and National Guard, how they acted, how they behaved, where they felt, right? He was just a colonel, arrogant in Special Forces. So now, one guy, his paycheck stopped. Oh, no, because he didn't have orders, but he's at Fort Carson. Oh, he can't pay his rent on his apartment that he rented off post for him and his wife. Oh, no, he's not getting paid. He doesn't have any money. He can't even eat on base. He doesn't have active orders. Right? The other guy, the day before his orders were out, they had to fly him back commercial from Bosnia. Because someone finally called him up and said, if this guy gets hurt overseas and he's not on orders anymore, guess who's it's on, right? Fly him back commercial. Then they had to fly him commercial to Bragg. The other guy had to get his butt to Bragg, and this is all on his own dime, right? He's got to get to Fort Bragg to out process now. The Sergeant First Class never leaves because he's got a little bit of political pull in Illinois. They give him training orders until he gets activated again and assigned to Fort Carson, right? Back assigned there. So he wheeled and dealed for himself, but not for the other 2. All right? Not for the other 2. Because he wasn't that type of a leader. He didn't want responsibility for anyone. So now, 10th Group is supposed to go over to Iraq. They messed that up. They messed it up. They showed up late. All right? They had to retrofit all their equipment in Romania. All right? So we go down to Romania. Now, this Sergeant First Class gets along with the Romanian officers fine. Gets along with all the Romanians fine. They finally go to Iraq. They leave this guy behind in Romania. He hooks up with the Romanian field marshal who comes over to visit his troops in Iraq and is talking to Rumsfeld. There is a picture on the front of on the cover of one of the Chicago Tribunes of this Sergeant First Class literally in Rumsfeld's face, in his face with his hands up, talking with his hands for the Secretary of Defense. That close to him with his hands up above his waist because he's translating for the Romanian field marshal. And this is the guy the 10th Group decided to leave behind. Another misuse of one of the sharpest tools they had in the drawer as a subject matter expert leader, not a military leader, not a mentoring leader, right? Not an administrative leader. This guy was the subject matter expert leader. And I just laughed I'm like, dude, you guys are wasting the best tool you had. Anyway, so, yeah, later on, one of these guys comes back and he's all sad and everything. And he needs his first non-commissioned officer evaluation report because the people on active duty, the major and the colonel, didn't give him one. So now he needs this in his records if he ever wants to get promoted to staff sergeant. So he asks me to write it up for him. Man, that was a tough decision day, Paul. Because what am I going to put? This first bullet statement? Disobeyed the direct order as his immediate commander. Boop, done. You're done, dude. I got it documented. But like when I was at Fort Bragg, they wanted me to bring these guys in handcuffs and have them court-martialed because they came on active duty for their country for a year. You know, really? Because they snotted off to me because I understood they're believing these active duty guys. I didn't take it personally that they didn't believe me. They're not as experienced or as smart as me, and I know the Sergeant First Class's motivations. You know, I know his motivations, all right? And I know he'll probably fall on his feet, right? But he's not going to look out for these two. So I says, okay. I says, they got all these evaluations. I'm just going to give them successes on everything and not put a single bullet statement in there. And you know what? He couldn't even challenge that. But the bad thing is, there are code things in the Army. If you see one of those evaluations come across your desk and you're on the board and you're deciding who's going to get promoted and you see that evaluation come across the board, guess where that guy goes? Bottom of the pile. Bottom of the pile. Because obviously this guy was so that no one even cared. But I gave him an average one, put in a couple average bullet statements so it would look decent, you know. But there, you know, here, even when I was in the position of leader, you know, document the highest ranking guy, the guy with the most time in. I had more time in than Sergeant First Class. Still, I couldn't get two of these guys to listen to me because someone else was in background working against me. One of them, especially that one guy that came back looking for his NCO, he was the one that did it to me. And I was standing on the carpet with the colonel and the lieutenant colonel. The lieutenant colonel of 10th Group there was a National Guard guy. So they called him up to active duty to be the deputy commander for the 10th Special Forces Group because 10th was calling up a lot of National Guard Special Forces guys. So I'm getting chewed out by this colonel for jumping the chain of command by contacting Special Forces Command to find out why we're still on active duty. All right? Which they didn't even know. They're like, what? It's like 6 people slipped through the cracks, right? So they didn't know. No one reported that we were there and everything. No one cared. And I'm getting chewed out by him. And the lieutenant colonel stops this colonel and he says, you know what? I think Chief was absolutely right. I wish some of your officers would take care of your people like he takes care of his. And I'm like,
Nice.
I was like, oh my God, thank you. I'm sitting in my head. You know, sometimes I didn't get an award. You know, no one wrote me up for an award. I didn't write myself up for an award, you know. But guess what? That statement from that lieutenant colonel, who I respected, had more impact on me than an entitled deployment. There's a guy that knows how to earn a little bit of respect, you know, gives you a guy a little hard cover, and he's going to be loyal. Right? The colonel was a screamer. He was a screamer. And he messed up big time. You show up 3 weeks late for a war. Come on. I can't talk about why. I know why. And it's hilarious. Because he wouldn't listen to SMEs again. Didn't listen to the SMEs. The subject matter, or in my case, the SAMF. All right. So now, I could see there's a lot of good reasons for battlefield promotions, but they're not in the way you see them. Case in point, a movie is made, right? And it looks like, oh my God, Forrest Gump, right? Forrest Gump goes in as a dirt private, right? He gets drafted. He goes into the Army, he's a private. The platoon gets ambushed, everyone's wiped out, pretty much. Not everyone's wiped out because they gave him the Medal of Honor for pulling all these people that were still alive and still made it out of the area, including Lieutenant Dan, right? And Lieutenant Dan's the leader. What's Lieutenant Dan doing now? When Gump pulls him out, he is calling in an airstrike to wipe everyone out. The Vietnamese and him and his troops. Right? So he's very brave, right? He's going to go down. He's wounded. He's going to go down. He's going to die in glory. Calling in an airstrike on his own position. Did he care about all the other troops that were out there wounded, that were still alive, that would have been caught in that airstrike? No. But Gump got him off, right?
Right.
And he disobeyed the orders. He's like, nope, I'm doing what I do. And he's focused, very focused. Not so brave, brave kind of, but focused. He's doing it. But they promote him to sergeant. And I said, well, that's great what he did. He was very brave. He did what he was, he did the right thing the whole time, got the Medal of Honor, but nope, don't want him as my squad leader. Nope, 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 no. No. In that situation, I'd still have to go with Legless Dan. You got your choice, Gump or Legless Dan. Legless Dan tried to get us all killed. I'll still go with Legless Dan because there's a chance he'll keep us alive. This guy, he'll walk us into a minefield with good intentions. But yeah, so the guy did everything great. He's a hero. He's all that. But does he make a good leader? Does he make a competent mentor? Does he make, right? Does he make, a guy that fixes the problems, right? It's able to get, you got a pay problem. He's able to get you paid. He knows where to send you to if you have issues. He knows how to inspect your stuff and, everything you should have. Doesn't. But yeah. Right, Lieutenant Dan. Lieutenant, commissioned, maybe went to VMI, military academy, all this military training and everything, hardcore, talking about socks and everything. And in the end run, he gets everyone killed. Was it his fault that he walked into the ambush? Who knows? But he's trying to finish the job for the enemy by calling an airstrike. Was it necessary? Could be. Who knows? It's fiction, right? It's fiction, but it's the type of leadership you have. You have indecisive leadership. You have decisive there. But that is the guy with all the glory. He's all brave. He's all the glory. But think about everyone else to your right and left. If it was a democracy and they had a vote on, hey, I got shot in my arm with a through and through, I could probably make it out of here, but I'm not going to make it out of the napalm run. My vote's for no. I will try to make it out here alive, Lieutenant Dan. If that, anyone want to call in with your leadership styles or tell me where to stick it for my opinions on fictional movies and stuff, that's fine. But do it in a nice way. Do it in a nice way. Try not to be vulgar here. I'm sorry for the SAMF. I know everyone knows what that means. The Army uses the nicer term SME. Subject matter expert, but if you've ever been in the Army, you know that no one's at SME. They're all SAMs. Everyone, you know what sharpshooting is, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we sit in an Army class, right? And I was an instructor, right? But I was a highly experienced instructor, right? Some of these guys go right to a school unit and they're book smart and they're given a letter of instruction from the Army. They say, you will teach this way, right? And these are the answers to the multi-guess questions, right? These are all the answers. This is what you teach. This is our doctrine. This is dogma. This is doctrine. This is it. It's written in the Army regulations. It's written in stone. You don't change this. Everyone knows it doesn't work that way in the field, right? Everyone knows it. But for the doctrine and dogma that you have to teach, that they have to learn by, that's the answer. So I learned as an instructor, I says, that's doctrine and dogma. And when they go to sharpshoot me, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not the way we did it, but maybe we did it wrong. So you've got people in there sharpshooting the SMEs too. Comrades, this is Chief Guard of the Republic Radio Show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday, noon to 1 a.m., 1410 WRMN, Elgin, the Fox River Valley Media Network. Check us out, www.WRMN1410.com. Studio phone 847-931-1410. Text number 505-926-1410. Or you could hit us up in the YouTube live chat. And don't forget to check out our shows, all of our past shows on Chief Guard of the Republic at Scilink.net or cgr.scilink.net. All right. And that's my webpage there. Or you can check out just the Chief Guard of the Republic channel on YouTube. So we're out there also. And we have a caller to start the last quarter of the show.
Awesome.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Hey, Larry. Larry's one of those SME leadership guys, the subject matter expert guys.
Kind. You know what? When I used to teach in the Army and later on for the federal government, I was a teacher, and I had all the students write down DFWTS. And I said, what does that stand for? I said, it stands for don't fool with the system. We had to kind of clean up a little, but the F stood for other things. But I wrote DFWTS. Don't fool with the system. Now, you're always going to have sharpshooters, or I know better than you type people. I used to see that all the time. And, that's the way it is. But I want to point out something that I'm going to make a statement about this war with Iran. Okay?
Okay, Larry.
People don't realize that this regime was probably built on the most important. When Ayatollah Khomeini hated the Shah, I'll go back in time a little, okay? And the one thing he never forgave the Shah for was opening up a dialogue with Israel, okay? When this regime took over in January of 79, their first target was Iranian Jews. That's what you meet. Almost every Iranian Jew who you meet, and there's a lot more in California or here, will tell you that the Ayatollahs took Jews, had nothing to do with Israel, and like Saddam Hussein did the same thing when he took over intelligence services after the Six-Day War. He identified people who had nothing to do with Israel and said, you are spies, and shot them. No trial, just shot them, okay?
Ouch.
And this regime has engaged in terrorizing Argentine Jews in 92 and 94. They went over and blew up a Jewish community center. So the main target of this regime has been Jews. Not only that, I hate to tell you this, but if someone's threatening to blow me up with an atomic bomb, guess what? I'm going to blow you up first, and that's exactly what happened.
Well,
so
we talked about that a little last week when you realized that Iran sits on the second largest oil deposits in the Middle East. They have why are they pumping money into a nuclear program for electricity when they could just burn their own crude and make a lot more electricity and do a lot more with that stuff, right? So no one with sense believes that they were doing a nuke program for energy. They were doing a nuke program to enrich the uranium for a nuclear bomb. Flat out, all right? Flat out, it's as good as gospel. It's absolutely, there's no other reason,
who was the prime target they were going to use it against?
Well,
nothing too. People
you need a delivery system. Well, they do
Yeah.
have a very short border across the Straits of Hormuz to get very close to Israel, right? What is the distance from their closest? You know, it's not. It's like maybe 200 miles, right, at the most.
I'm sure.
All right, so I would have to look up on a map there, but yeah. So otherwise, it's the delivery systems, right? So they're working on ballistic missiles, you know, that could hit regions outside of their area, long regions, all right, and that would include us, all right.
Yep.
So, yeah, what would happen if they just nuked Diego Garcia, right?
You're right.
What if they nuke Cyprus?
Well, I just came back from there. You see, nothing too. People, when you say the word nuke, the fallout's going to be all over the Arab world. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
depending on what type of warhead they used.
Yep.
Yeah, but all right. So no, I agree with that, and I'm, you know, it's hard. It's hard for me to say. You know, every other public outlet is out there. You start talking about that. So me and Paul thought we'd talk about something slightly different, be a little, you know, give a break to the narrative that's been going on ad nauseum. Not that I don't want to talk about it and everything. And I agree, Larry. We have been in a de facto war with Iran since 1979. All right. So that's 47 years, 47-year war. De facto war, not open force on force conflict, right? Yeah. But they, you know, they're supplying the Houthis, they're supplying Hezbollah, Hamas, all this other stuff, and you know, and especially in Afghanistan, all right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, no doubts about that. But here, Larry is one of these, like you said, he's a SME, a subject matter expert, but you know, he's a leader he's also a de facto leader. And one day we were at summer camp, and we're all below the rank of sergeant. Larry was the only sergeant. And we all came to him when you know, nothing's getting done. Our own squad leaders, our own section chiefs, they're not taking care of us. But Larry had he had a mentorship about him, right? So we would go over there, and he would advise us what to do, and he'd give us good advice. So he was not only a subject matter expert, but he's a de facto leader that people come to. And I didn't,
very kind.
I didn't see Larry working against the command. All right, he wasn't working against the command. He was working better. He was one of these guys that make the command a lot better because of his thing. All right, but I've seen guys out there, like I said, in the K Mutiny. This guy was absolutely working against this commander. Absolutely. Just making things worse. He wasn't trying to make anything better. He was making it worse. And if you get to the end of the book, you know, he cowered out. He chickened out. When he had time to step up and be a man, he chickened out. Right? And the guy that got the punishment for all that stuff, the poor ensign, he was the one that got, they don't show it in the movie. They don't show it in the movie, but he wins the Silver Star on the same day they gave him a permanent reprimand.
Yeah. you know, Larry.
Thanks for the kind words, guys. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Larry, hold on. Larry, you know, when I was in college, I started college in 1977. All right. And I finished in 80. I finished early. But in 79 was when the embassy attack came. Okay.
Yeah, November 79.
And in my class, there's I think it was a place called Hale's Corners or something like that near Galena. Colonel Leland Holland's nephew, also named Holland, was in my class. Okay. And what happened was, the Iranians, even back then, they gave confidential information. They sent it to all the families of the hostages that had, because I remember he brought it to class, and it was top secret. And you know, the teacher, Dr. Linger, told him He's not supposed to do that. But because whether they got it from the Iranians or whatever, they were trying to make the United States look bad. But there was confidential communiques that they sent to the families to, like, quote, justify what they were doing. And then we also had another one that Father Janko from Joliet was also one of the hostages at the time.
Yes,
So
in Lebanon.
yeah, so when we talk about this, it might be a world away in some people, but it's really not, because there's people from all over that are affected by this, and they've been we talked about this a little bit last week. They've been a rogue regime for over almost 50 years now. And they've created, like Mike said, and like you alluded to, they've created they've supported all the non-state actors that are harassing us, attacking us. They blew up the embassy, the Marine barracks. They did the coal. They did everything. So they've been a thorn in our side for almost 50 years, and it's about time that they get around and get out of there. How that's going to happen, I don't know. I just hope it happens with the least amount of American losses and civilian and allied casualties.
Yeah, and
there's an old Arab saying, I want to throw in there, Paul and Mike. You know what the old Arab saying is? They're saying, they used to say 100 years is a short time, because what that means is that in 100 years, the generations are gone. Everybody's dead, but then there's a new generation to take over. So that's an old Arab saying, 100 years is a short time.
Yeah, well,
there'll be others to take our place.
They're hitting us when we still have memory of this stuff. Like, they're hitting them while we still have memory, all right? So we're in our early teens, early 20s in 79, all right? And, this has been going on. So it's our whole adult life. We've been in a de facto war with these just pains. Now, here's warnings, beyond warnings, because our own press can't keep their mouths shut about anything, right?
No.
So we have to do things in such unbelievable strict secret, right? But everyone knows it. And these guys were so incompetent that they had not prepared for the absolute devastation that was unleashed upon them. They've had 50 years to build up a significant defense against us. Right, 47 years, significant defense with all the oil money that they were making off of China, India, and China and India, selling them all that oil money, getting all that money in there. They exported a lot of it for their clandestine, backbiting, not fighting up front, guys that they could have some sort of the plausible deniability. Fighting this whole proxy war, but they never looked at their arrogance, their hubris, that could I possibly be undone, made dead, disappeared, checked off, erased. They're like, no, I got all these humans, boom, oh, you're gone, all your human shields are gone. And now, right?
I just wonder.
All right, so now, here's the thing. It's the nihilist system. The next guy that steps up and says, I'm in charge, he goes down too. It's whack-a-mole. Next guy pops his head up, boom, he goes down. Until one guy, before he pops his head up, throws up that white flag and says, unconditional surrender, let's talk. And here's the thing, that's not going to happen, because here's the guy that's going to throw up the white flag. Finally, the people will get upset enough that they're going to round these guys up. There's going to be, they just killed 30,000 people. I guarantee you that they didn't kill all their families. They didn't kill all their friends. That there are a few people left out there with a deep and burning hatred that are just waiting, hatred for and need for revenge, that are just waiting for the opportunity to step in and say, we have a new government, deal with us. You know, that's
Okay.
scary. That's scary to me because if that happens, they might invite us in and boots on ground to do their fighting for them. Say, nah. We'll give you precision airstrikes. You tell us where you want to hit. We'll make it into rubble. You know, I still disagree with boots on ground, even when it comes to the State Department to nation building, because the State Department messes that up. They've never gotten it right. They haven't gotten it right. So let the people build their own nation. Say, we should have done that in Afghanistan. What did we do?
I agree.
We provided some special operations guys, all right, that gave them precision airstrikes in place of heavy artillery, that caused the Taliban to rapidly fold, right, which is the same thing we should do now, the same exact thing, except I would say not even send in the special forces, drop a couple radios to guys that you know and say, okay, give us where you want. We'll put it there. All right. That's where the State Department, that's where the CIA should have already identified these people. Get in communication with them, you know, get the precision munitions on where you want us to flatten, and then let the people do it for themselves. And then let the people choose their own form of government. Don't nation build them. These aren't cavemen. They're not. They're not. There's a lot of educated people came out of Persia. There's still a lot of educated, smart people there. All right? Let them choose their own form of government, the way they want to run. Don't put we do have, we have a good template, but don't give them that template, because when that template fails in their country, they blame you. And you're trying to force them into a template. You're trying to force a square peg into a round hole. You're like, it won't go in. It won't go in. The State Department goes, you push it hard enough, it'll go in. Right? And that's what they use the military for.
Well, isn't it
why would we clone ourselves? Why would we clone ourselves? Let the people have the government that they choose. They chose the wrong government in 1979, and they all learned.
They didn't choose any government. It was the mullahs and they said we're going to be an Islamic Republic.
Hey, that's right.
I bet you
they chose the government by allowing that to happen. All right, they weakened the system and stepped in, and the mullahs and everyone stepped into it. That's the same thing that happened in Afghanistan. 89, the Russians pulled out. Right? Then it was free for all. It was a free for all. You had all the foreign fighters still there. All the
Okay.
And
I got a question for both you and Paul. I want to ask you both a question, okay? And you guys are both historians. How many followers did Lenin have when he took over Russia? About how many followers, Paul? How many followers did Lenin have? How many people did he say?
He had one more. He had one more than the people in the Duma.
Okay. How many followers did Hitler have in 1923?
And the numbers don't matter. He had one more than he needed.
They started out. They started out as like radicals, and then gradually they started to amass a following.
So the Soviet Union was very specific and targeted. All right. So it wasn't even the communists. It wasn't Lenin that did this. All right. Let me explain, because it does have a little bit of overlap of what happened in Iran way back then. All right, and what happened in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So the Germans sent in Lenin and Trotsky. All right, they went in there. Yep. Lenin went in there, right? But before Lenin had done that, you already had the rich peasants in the Duma. All right, the rich people that occupied the places in the Duma. All right, and these rich businessmen that had the factories that controlled the food, that controlled the land, the logistics of everything, had ceased sending munitions and food to the front, undermining the Tsar, because they didn't want to compete with the named nobility, all right, the guys with titles, all right, because they couldn't hold office because they didn't have titles, right? So what they thought is that once they got rid of the Tsar, they would bribe these guys with titles, with money, all right, and they would basically take over running the country. As soon as they did that, right? As soon as they did that, Lenin and Trotsky seized the opportunity. The next meeting of the Duma, they went into it, right? And in parliamentary style, they voted themselves in. All right? So that's the Bolsheviks, all right? The Bolsheviks.
Right.
The majority. Bolshoi means big, all right? Bolshoi, that's big. That's the adjective for big, large, all right? Menche means lesser, all right? Menchi, all right? So Mensheviks were the minority. They were voted out. The communists voted themselves in. But it was the Mensheviks that had set up the whole system for the communists to move in. Again, here we got the Al-Qaeda, right, in Afghanistan, defeat the Russians, right? Russians leave. Suddenly the Al-Qaeda, they don't know what they don't care. Most of the foreign fighters, had total contempt for the Afghans because they're Pashtuns or whatever. And then they started behaving all wrong. And the people said, this is even worse than the Russians. And that's when the Taliban, who never fought the Russians, came in and took over because they were better than what was there now. All right. Then you have this war in the north with the Northern Alliance because they kind of liked, the freedoms they had under the Russians. Right. So same thing, you look in Iran, all right? So the Shah is there, right? And you got a royalty there, and you got a control, a monopoly of the wealth and everything, and people are kind of upset at it, all right? Because they're sick of this royalty snubbing in their faces. The Shah leaves, they depose everything, they go riot in the streets, they take over the embassies. Yeah, we're the student revolution. And boom, here comes in the mullahs because they're organized. They're organized. They got their churches and they got their followers and they see an opportunity and they take over. And now suddenly these people that thought, we wanted more liberalism. Because the Shah was too conservative, so we wanted liberalism. We wanted to liberalize Iran, but all of a sudden, these ultra-right wings come in and take over, and now we opened up the door for them. They opened the door. They knocked down the walls to let the enemy in, all right? And they're like, oh no, we're being oppressed now. Well, okay. Because you were disorganized when you did this, because you couldn't keep them out, because you never had a thing to do, because you were just acting on your emotions. So we can't have that happen now. We have to, they have to set up something, right? Not just an emotional state that's going to be even more oppressive. It's a terrorist thing.
That was one of the reasons why the Shah, go ahead.
I don't know. We're talking about 1979, and they even bring up the Crown Prince. Forget the Crown Prince. If he wanted to be back in power in Iran, he would have hired an army and went in there and invaded and taken over. Why did they even mention that guy? I don't care. You're a prince. Whippy. You're the Crown Prince of Iran.
He's like the government in exile is why they're doing that.
Yeah, okay. And what sort of government does he have in exile? What sort of setup has he been working in the background? Does he have a Senate already set up?
Why did the Weimar Republic fail, guys?
Have we taken his government in exile and taken his troops, right, in exile that he's recruited and trained and put them on landing craft that he's paying for and launched them in and had them go in and now march and take Tehran and drag in an army just like the man who would be king, start off with some forces, snowball it, steamroll it over, take over the regime. No, he hasn't done that. Does he have credibility? No, because you know what? These simpleton liberals, way left liberals, they look at, monarchy. Look how good he looks. Oh, look how educated and proper he behaves. He's a prince. So what? Ivan the Terrible was a czar. Great leader.
I got you guys going, huh? Okay.
All right. What I'm saying is, where are...
As always.
Remember, 1917, the Tsar went too far.
Purge when you urge.
The Tsar did try to say, let's liberalize the country.
Because the Tsar went too far.
Right.
Don't forget to do the Fox Trotsky.
Why did they fail? Right. They had too much democracy.
Mike. Exactly.
Because Trotsky died in 40.
Right.
Of a splitting headache. In Mexico City.
All right. I'm going to hang up, guys. You guys did a great show.
Thanks, Larry. It's good to have Larry at the end of the show to get me all spun up on that. But honestly, where are these? Why do we not have... Hey, We were ready to drop the entire Polish Airborne Brigade. We promised that we dropped the entire Polish Airborne Brigade into Poland to support the liberation of Warsaw. Instead, we dropped them on occupied German drop zones at Arnhem.
Dean, Jose, Larry, and Brendan, thanks for your loyal support.
Thank you.
Have a great week, everyone.